So, Dan, what do you think the immediate impact of this virus will be on U.S. trade on Phase 1 agreement between these two countries?
Well, thanks for having me on the show, Asieh, but there will definitely be an impact in terms of timing. I think the world is convinced and frankly assured and reassured that China is going to continue to do its part as the U.S. is. But I think everyone is leaving a little bit of flexibility because of the coronavirus. So the commitments will be honored. I think the time frame is going to push out a little bit further than was anticipated.
So we should not be surprised if China delays or puts off some of its commitments and promises with its purchases.
We should absolutely not be surprised. I mean, we're talking, Asieh, about things like, ships that can't enter ports, goods that can't be unloaded. There are factors beyond anyone's control that are at play here. And I think both countries are going to take a very sensitive and a very down-to-earth interpretation of what's been agreed to. No one anticipated what China is facing right now, and I think there will be some flexibility.
And then the economic impact, it's not really just in China. I mean, the implications could be felt around the world.
Well, China is at the center of a global supply chain, so it's not a compartmentalized market whatsoever. And we're seeing these effects elsewhere. I mean, obviously, we saw it in the discussions about the trade war, and then everyone breathed a sigh of relief when the Phase 1 deal was entered into. But based on the coronavirus, it is absolutely going to have a ripple, perhaps a domino effect on many other economies. And again, it's virtually out of the control of everyone here. There's no one to blame, and we just can only hope that this terrible outbreak gets resolved as soon as possible.
Dan, what can U.S. and countries around the world do to help China lessen perhaps the economic blow?
That's a great question. I think in one area that comes to mind immediately where China has already opened up its market and where Chinese has certainly had an impact in the U.S. is in financial services. Money really can continue to flow back and forth. It's not like a ship full of goods. The example that I make is last year, the least known Chinese export to the U.S. were initial public offerings. So IPOs, companies listing on stock exchanges, where China literally exported 25% of the U.S. market in IPOs, meaning Chinese companies listed on NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange. And that was about $4.6 billion of investment. Most of it came from China following these companies. And it actually was more than China purchased in soybeans, which was only about $3.3 billion. So let's focus on areas where, for example, China has opened up the financial services industry to international firms to be able to majority own certain previous joint ventures and other initiatives. So those, in my way of thinking, can proceed much more easily than the physical movement of goods. And I think that's a great area for continued expansion from both sides, financial services.
Financial